I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who walks into a church on a Sunday morning with a smile on her face and destruction in her hands. But here we are. My name is Dana. I'm 46 years old. I have two daughters, Claire, who's 17, and Sophie, who just turned 15. And about a year ago, their father died in a car accident while we were in the middle of divorcing him. I know how that sounds. Let me explain. Ray and I were married for 19 years. I was the one who worked. I was the one who kept the household running, paid the mortgage, built the savings. Ray was charming and warm and the kind of man everyone liked at parties. He was also, as it turned out, living a completely separate life behind my back for years. A life that produced two children with another woman. And here's the part that still gets me when I think about it: my daughters found out before I did. Claire and Sophie. Teenagers, they stumbled onto something they weren't supposed to see. And instead of hiding it, they came to me. That took more courage than most adults I know. I filed for divorce 2 weeks later. 4 months after that, Ray was gone. The affair partner passed away too, within months of Ray. Their two boys' babies really were placed with distant relatives on Ray's side. I want to be very clear about something. I don't blame those children for a single thing. But my daughters, who are in therapy working through a level of betrayal most adults couldn't handle, were not in a place to take on the role of big sisters. Anyone with half a brain and a working heart would understand that. Ray's parents, Harold and Margaret, did not have either of those things. Margaret was 78 years old and had been the unofficial queen of her church community for decades. Church treasurer, charity organizer, the woman who knew everyone's business and everyone's secrets. She was beloved. She was trusted. And she had known about Ray's affair the entire time, not suspected, not guessed. Known, I had the text messages. Ray telling her everything, and Margaret telling him to be careful and keep the peace at home. She protected her son's secret for years while I was being made a fool of in my own marriage. After Ray died, Margaret moved fast. First, she filed for partial custody of Claire and Sophie, claiming we were alienating them from their grandparents. My lawyer is handling that. Then she started telling people she needed to move in with us because she had nowhere else to go, which was a lie. Because she and Harold had a home and had inherited Ray's bank account and his life insurance. They were not struggling. They were performing. But the thing I didn't know about, not until it was too late, was the campaign she had been running inside her church. While I was grieving, working, raising two daughters, and fighting a custody case, Margaret had been posting in the church Facebook group. Long, detailed posts about how Dana was keeping grandchildren from their loving grandparents, how Dana had refused to take in those poor orphaned boys, how Dana was cold and bitter and failing her Christian duties. The comments were vicious. People who had never met me calling me heartless. Men saying I needed prayer. Women offering Margaret their sympathy in the dozens. And then there was the surrogate story. Because people were naturally going to ask where those boys came from. Margaret couldn't say affair that would destroy her son's memory, and her own reputation along with it. So she told the church that the other woman had been our surrogate. That I was unable to have more children. And that when the boys were born, I rejected them because I had wanted girls. I didn't find out about any of this until the day she cornered my daughter at a farmer's market. Sophie's birthday was on a Thursday. Her party was scheduled for later in the month, so I decided to do something small just for her. Took both girls downtown to the weekend market. Fresh produce, local vendors, homemade chocolates. Sophie loves that kind of thing. I gave her some money and let her wander while Claire and I looked around nearby. About an hour in, my phone rang. It was Sophie. She was crying. She said some women had cornered her and wouldn't let her leave. I ran through that market like the building was on fire. When I found her, she was backed against a produce stand with 6 older women standing in a half circle around her, blocking her in. All from Margaret's church. They were telling my 15-year-old daughter on her birthday that she was unchristian for refusing to spend time with her grandparents. That she had a duty to those orphaned baby brothers. That her behavior was shameful. One of them told her that her father's death was a tragedy and she should be using that pain to become closer to family, not push them away. I stepped between them and Sophie. I told Claire to take her sister, pay for the stuff, and go straight to the car. Then I turned back around to those women and I said everything I had to say. I was not calm. I was not measured. By the time it was over, market management had come over and asked all of us to leave. The women followed me to the parking lot. I got my girls in the car and I drove away. That night, after the girls were in bed, I messaged Thomas, a man from that church I had always gotten along with. One of the decent ones. I told him what happened. He apologized immediately, and then he told me to look at the church Facebook group. I looked. And I sat there reading Margaret's posts for a long time. Reading the comments. Reading her replies. Watching her perform grief and innocence for an audience of hundreds who had no idea who she actually was or what she had actually done. Here's something you should know about me. I don't react. I have never been a reactor. In 19 years of marriage, I absorbed things, processed them, and made decisions slowly and deliberately. When I found out about the affair, I didn't scream or confront or make a scene. I called a lawyer. I started documenting everything, because I knew even then that things were going to get complicated. I had photographs. I had text message chains. I had emails between Ray and Margaret where she knew everything and coached him on how to maintain the lie. I had messages where Harold and Margaret harassed me after I filed for divorce, called me a homewrecker in my own marriage, threatened me. And I had one message that I had read so many times, the words were burned into my memory, a message Margaret sent directly to my daughters, 2 days after their father died, calling them bastards, telling them it was their fault Ray was dead because they had told me about the affair and forced the divorce. 2 days after their father died. To 2 grieving teenage girls. I had never planned to use any of it publicly. It felt like dragging pain out into daylight for no reason. But Margaret had made her choice. She had chosen to build a throne out of lies in front of hundreds of people, and she had chosen to send women to surround my child on her birthday. So now, we were doing this. I took a day off work. I went to the print shop. I had everything printed on good, heavy paper, the photographs, the messages, the emails, all of it. I paid extra. And then I went home and I spent an evening building binders. Now I need you to understand what these binders looked like, because this is the part that mattered. Margaret's church hands out little printed packets at the entrance every Sunday song lyrics, prayer guides, that kind of thing. Visitors pick them up from a table at the back. Nobody monitors that table. Nobody checks what's on it. I had been to that church enough times during the marriage to know exactly what those packets looked like, the size, the weight, the color of the cardstock. My binders looked just like them. The cover was plain and clean. The first page you saw when you opened it was Ray and the affair partner together in our living room. Faces fully visible. No ambiguity about who either of them was. No ambiguity about what was happening. Underneath, in simple printed text, I had written their 2 names. Just their names. The rest of the pages told the story without me needing to add a single word of commentary. I drove to the church on Sunday morning before service started. I walked in through the side entrance, put my binders on the table with the other song packets, and I left. Thomas texted me that afternoon. All he said was, "Dana." The pastor had to stop the service. By that evening, I was watching the church Facebook group transform in real time. The same people who had spent weeks calling me a cold and faithless woman were now tearing Ray's name apart in the comments. The surrogate story collapsed the moment people saw those photographs. The woman in them looked nothing like me. Different skin tone, different build, different hair. Margaret's entire carefully maintained fiction came apart in the span of a Sunday afternoon. The message to my daughters, the one calling them bastards 2 days after their father died, got shared in the comments by someone who had screenshotted it from the binder. The pastor himself had to step in to keep the language in the group below a certain level. And what about me? Even with all of that, there were still people who thought the divorce itself had been wrong. Still people who felt I had failed some duty. But the thing I kept reading over and over in various forms was, given everything she endured, it is understandable. Unlike her husband. I'll take it. Margaret and Harold didn't get asked to leave the church. They left on their own. Too ashamed to walk back through those doors. Margaret posted on her personal page afterward about how alone she felt. How nobody cares about the elderly. How she wished Ray was still alive because he would have taken care of her. With what money, I kept thinking. With whose career? With whose 19 years? I got 2 handwritten letters in the mail a week later. Both addressed to Sophie, from women who had been at the market that day. Both were apologies. Sophie read them. She didn't write back. She didn't have to. I got an invitation to join the church for support and community in these difficult times. I did not respond. The custody case is still moving through the courts. My lawyer is not worried. Claire is working on her college applications. Sophie told me last week that she wants to study marine biology. Life is loud and full and moving forward the way it's supposed to. As for Margaret, she spent years protecting a lie for a son who wasn't worth protecting. She built an entire social kingdom on the assumption that the truth would never come out. She weaponized a community of church-going people against a woman she had wronged. And she sent 6 of them to surround a 15-year-old at a birthday market because she thought I was the kind of woman who would absorb it and go quiet. She thought I was going to fight her. I wasn't fighting. I was just returning something she'd left at my door. Wrapped a little nicer,